Would you like to introduce your name and where you're from?
Sure, my name is Saba Colakoglu. I'm originally from Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Ankara, Turkey. Ankara is the capital of Turkey. And then I moved to United States in 2001. So I've been here since then.
Awesome. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a professor at a university.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
Where did you first move when you came to the United States?
So we first moved to New Jersey. It was kind of South Jersey, closer to Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then we were in New Jersey from 2001 to 2009. After that, we moved to Georgia in 2009. And then we've been here ever since.
Why did you move to the United States?
Oh, that's a good question and a loaded one. We moved to United States because my husband got laid off from the company that we both were working for. So at the time, we were both working for a company called Nokia. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Finnish cell phone company.
Yeah.
And my husband is a structural engineer, so he was one of the kind of the project people. Unfortunately, they couldn't get those big government contracts, you know, their competitor did. And Nokia started to lay out all the people that they hired for that specific job. So my husband kept on looking for jobs, not only in Turkey, but kind of, all over the globe.
Yeah.
Turkey was going through an economic crisis at that time. So it was very hard for him to find a job in Istanbul. So he kind of applied for jobs. We get a call from a very small engineering company in New Jersey asking him when he can come to United States for an interview. And he says, "Oh, I can come next week." So he goes there, he has an interview, and then he calls me from New Jersey saying, do you want to move? They offered me a job here. And at that time, I was also pregnant with my first son.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of like we were at a crossroads in terms of where the life was headed and kind of taking us. And at the time, the idea of just kind of, leaving everything behind, my work, my family, and moving somewhere else, and kind of raising my baby sounded like a really good idea. And I got on the plane on November 3rd, 2001, which was also my birthday. With a baby in my belly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a very nice, nice apartment that we were kind of living in. But I was so happy because everything was kind of new and big and bright.
Would you ever consider moving back? Why or why not?
That's a good question. And I've considered moving back for a very long time. I think until maybe like 2013, it wasn't like, considering moving back, but it was questioning whether we're going to stay here for the rest of our lives or, are we going back at some point? Because we're not American, but we're not Turkish anymore, so we're kind of in this in-between place. And to again give you some context about what happened in New Jersey, so we came with a work permit for my husband. That work permit gives the spouse the permission to study but not to work. And so I wasn't allowed to work with the kind of visa we had. The only thing I could do was to study. So I get into a PhD program, and I fall in love with kind of like the whole academic, environment. I realized that's much better for me than kind of working in a corporate environment. So I went to get my graduate degree. I graduated. And then we moved to Georgia.
Okay.
because I found a job here, and my husband found a job there here too. And I think so. During the PhD program, I'm sure you know from your mom, it's a very kind of intense environment. Like you're tired, you're working, you're learning the whole time. You really don't have time to kind of socialize. And after we moved here, so I start working towards my tenure, which I'm sure you also know from your mom, that it's another time in your life which is super stressful. I did not have any time to build a kind of social network or kind of to socialize. And I kept on thinking, if I die here in the middle of the day, I have no one almost that would come to my funeral.
Yeah.
I mean, a few colleagues, my husband, my 2 boys, but nobody else. Maybe my neighbor, I don't know. So is this the kind of life that I would like to lead? That, I die here and nobody comes to my funeral? So that gave me are we staying here or are we going to go back where we have so many people, so many connections, so many loving relationships? And I got tenure, and that gave me some room to start socializing a little bit.
Yeah.
So apparently there is a Turkish American group here in Atlanta.
Okay.
And they have some gatherings or get-togethers or picnics. And one, I think, Friday or Saturday night when I was feeling very depressed, I see this email that night there's a Turkish movie showing, and you can go there. So I go there by myself, and I'm suddenly opening up to a social group that I had no clue existed, and that I felt really kind of attached to or kind of fit in, because this was a group of people, everybody born, raised, educated most of the time in Turkish. Everybody's professional, they've got jobs, but they're also, they've been here for such a long time that they're also Turkish American. So I think after that, because I was so hungry for that level of connection, and I also had tenure, I didn't have to worry about that much. So I think I went through a period of a little bit excessive, I think, socialization, because I was so kind of craving for that type of thing. And it is at that time that I realized we're probably staying here. If I die, yes, I will have a big funeral. So I won't have to worry about that anymore. So that question mark no longer exists.
Yeah.
Having said that, I still feel emotionally connected to Turkey.
Would you identify more as an American or as a Turkish citizen?
Okay, so again, that's a great question. I identify as a Turkish American.
Okay.
Because I feel like those are the people that went through almost the same experiences as I did. So their formative years were in Turkey, within the Turkish culture. At some point they come here, and everybody has gone through a very similar process of adjusting to the environment, to the cultural environment, to the social environment, to the education system. If you ask that question to my husband, he says he feels 100% American.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he gets very upset when I say, well, I don't feel American, I feel Turkish American, I feel like an immigrant. He gets very upset when I say this, because he's a proud American. He's as proud as he can be.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
When you go back to Turkey, are there some major differences from when you lived there?
Basically, things have changed a lot at some level, and things have not changed at another level. So what changed was basically the political environment. when we left Turkey in 2001, the current ruling party, the AKP party, just kind of got the leadership position, and it is a far right party that is very conservative, that wants to take Turkey to a more Islamic route. And they've been the ruling party ever since, and they swayed away from some of the core fundamental modern values that the modern Turkish Republic has been based on. So the most visible changes that I see when I go there is lots and lots of women wearing hijabs, or kind of like the black thing, and there has been like a bubble economy based on just constructing new malls, new buildings, new infrastructure that made the supporters of this party super rich. But this group is not kind of educated. They hate the West. They hate the founding father of Turkey. So it's kind of that environment that just disturbs me a lot. But again, people that look like me, that think like me, that have progressive, more humanistic, more global, universal values, they still exist, but they live almost in a bubble of minority.
Do you feel like you've experienced any discrimination since you've been in the United States?
No. I don't think so. I really don't think so. One of the reasons why I really love this country, and I do, is because, if you work hard, if you are ethical, if you got, solid, strong values, people recognize that, people notice that, and, it pays off. So I never really felt discriminated.
What was your impression of the United States before you came, and what is it now?
Oh, that's a very tough question to answer. My impression about United States was very simplistic and so much based on the Hollywood movies that we've been watching in the 80s and in the 90s. So simplistic in the sense that it was based on lots of rich white people living in big houses, driving big apartments, and partying all the time. It has changed so much since we started here. It's definitely not like what people envision. I think after the 80s and 90s, popular culture based on let's say Kim Kardashian hanging out with the Kardashians, or whatever the name of that show is, like people think that's how Americans live or want to live. They have no idea what kind of a workaholic culture this is. People here are obsessed with working, being productive, being busy, doing something that is, targeted at some end goal that means something. It is a very, I have to say, a little bit boring compared to other parts of the world. Kind of boring, very predictable, very structured, very organized, and very work-centered culture.
And lastly, what is some advice you would give to someone who is Turkish, who is planning to move to the United States?
I would say try to find a Turkish American group that you can connect with, that you can get help with, not only for logistical things, but as a cultural translator.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Riley.